everyone. My name is Sarah Webb, and I'm the editor of AgriBusiness Global. Welcome to this episode of the AgriBusiness Global Report. In this segment, I'll be speaking with Manel Cervera, Managing Partner and Chief Commercial Officer for DunhamTrimmer, about the Biostimulant Market segment. Manel is the primary author of DunhamTrimmer's brand new 2025 Global Biostimulant Market Report, and will also dig into the findings of that report. Manel, thanks so much for joining me today. DunhamTrimmer is projecting that market growth in non-microbial biostimulants will be less than the double-digit compound annual growth rate that we have grown accustomed to seeing with biologicals. Why is this?
Well, basically, I would say that the sector it's approaching like a level of critical mass. I would say that until now the segment has been moving more from a niche towards a let's say consolidated segment, and we are starting to find some maturity effects or some maturity symptoms on some of the key markets where growth started to be below the two-digit numbers. So that's probably one of the main reasons explaining that. Uh, and also probably also we are coming from a really, let's say, uncommon period in the pandemic and post-pandemic, but that have increased probably a little bit pressure on the price. And there's also an issue on a commoditization risk, which is increasing in this industry, and that's also part of this growth below the two-digit numbers. And also there's has been like a inventory normalization, which has been highly impacted during these last years. But most important probably is that together with that, some of the key markets started to enter in a higher maturity level. Probably the second main reason is that we are in a greater scale. I mean, the market really has reached real big figures. It's one of the biggest biological segments globally. So it's importantly that to note that even, I mean, the fact that the growth is going below the two-digit figures and does not mean that the opportunity is shrinking. I would say it's the opposite. In fact, for the coming years, in absolute figures, in total number of million of dollars entering new in the market every year, that's going to keep increasing. And in the next 5 years, we will keep moving on additional 500 millions of dollars exports basis entering into the global market annually, and we will end up 2030 even close to or even up the $600 million. So in absolute figures, it's important to note that the market is still growing, so opportunity is there.
Okay, that's good to know. And traditionally, we have seen European players be the most active biostimulant suppliers in key markets around the world, including in Latin America, the Middle East, and North Africa, and Southeast Asia. How is that changing?
Yeah, that's been really one of the, I would say, probably one of the most important findings during our research, which we've been working from 2020 on updating and tracking and following up the evolution of the biostimulant industry. I would say that, in my opinion, I think European companies have been the architects of the global biostimulant market in many of the regions. Okay, probably in some cases like North America, like China, India, it's been less impactful. But in many of the other regions of the world, really they've been the ones building the business models and the market development models. But yeah, that's really it's been changing in the last decade, and probably the results of this change have become more evident in the last few years. I think I think one of the things we've seen is that there is a rise of strong global champions, and probably Brazil would be a clear example of that. Probably also China, yeah, to some extent. But in some of the key markets, we've seen local companies developing their products and taking advantage probably of a higher competitiveness on, let's say, um, understanding the appropriate regulatory pathways and administration pathways and political pathways, the proximity, of course, also to the raw materials, but more especially probably the deep understanding and connection with the local players, with the local channel, and that probably gave them a strong competitiveness. That that I would say Brazil could be like a paradigm of this change, but it's something we are seeing in many other markets and countries overall. And another interesting factor, quite strongly linked to the previous one, would be that the vertical integration by distributors, and I would say U.S. It's the clear paradigm and example on this competitive asset. For many years, I think um, U.S. distributors, but also again, it could be applied to any other geographies and countries out of the European region. And these strong distributors, which they realize that they are the ones who really own the access to the farm gate, and so they are the ones who really have the power to convince to offer a global offers on products and solutions to the farmer. They really understood that they could integrate vertically upstream and become also formulators of products, and that that gave them, of course, access to a big piece of share of the total margin and profit on the chain, and also it gave them the opportunity to leverage all their competitive assets on proximity, understanding, access to the farm gate, and connection with the farmer, etc., etc. And that's been really a strong trend that, as I mentioned, US is a perfect example, but I would say that many other examples can be found in different geographies. And that's something I think very important. And one thing I don't want to miss, I think it's also the China's strategic evolution. I think I think we probably miss or underestimate the importance of China's players, Chinese players, as a really a strong competitive asset. Not only because they've been the most important B2B supplier of raw materials and semi-elaborated, semi-formulated products to the formulators worldwide, but also because they are really starting to think on becoming also B2D, B2C players, and start to sell their branded products and develop their own brands at global basis. And that's something we are closely tracking. I would say nothing is still visible, but I am sure that in the coming years we will see some interesting events happening around that.
Okay, and building on that, what are some areas of growth opportunity that you see for biostimulants?
I would say that grow crops and cereals are, of course, a big growing opportunity. And if we look at the crop segments, and this is the segment that's growing the fastest, and that's important. Um, I think there's still a lot to do on that, but I think also technologies, uh, any technologies and innovation related to artificial intelligence or applications or smart agricultural practices and technologies. I think anything that can help us to make the products more efficient when applied to the row crops and cereals, and also escape from this dependency on the technology of biostimulant products to be applied. So whenever we can find a way to deliver products in the most appropriate, let me say, phenological period, and where the product works the best in the row crops and cereals, I think anything that can make that feasible, that would be really a real game changer.
Well said. That's good to know. Thanks again, Manel, for your insights. And thank you, everyone, for joining for this segment of the Agribusiness Global Report. Stay tuned for more updates from around the industry.